Hey yo, what's good, y'all? It's that boy, Easy Millions, and I'm your host of That Boy ETV. You already know, man, we are back on FragPunk, and with the update yesterday, we got us a new game mode called Toy Frontline, man. And what is this game mode exactly? Well, basically, if you ever played Call of Duty, this is basically a zombies horde mode for FragPunk, where basically it's round based, and every round you have a certain amount of toys that'll come and try to destroy your core that you must protect. In between these rounds, you are able to set up traps and turrets, things like that, to help take out the toys, man. That's basically exactly what this is. Now, if this is where we're starting for PvE, if this is like our starting point, this is not a bad starting point at all, in my opinion. It does need some more improvements and a lot of work. I do believe in that. But ultimately, for it to just be starting off, it is a good starting point. Outside of the quick play element, which is where you get on and you team up with at least 2 other friends, or you find 2 randoms online and y'all fight through wave after wave. Even though the one thing that I didn't like about this is it stops at a certain wave and it doesn't actually stop once you lose, to see how far you're actually able to get. I think it only goes to like 4 or 5 waves total, which is kind of crazy in my opinion. I wish it kind of would have went until the core is broken. This way you can see, you know, who has had the longest streak as far as waves go. Now, also with this mode too came another one, which is more like a story mode where you play solo, and in between you do get to see a story. We're basically explaining where the Toy Frontline game mode comes from. I haven't been able to play through the story yet, but the chapters I did play through, apparently Counterfeit finds some device and she gets sucked into the core, and that's why we are forced to protect the core in the actual game mode, because Counterfeit is stuck inside. Now, I haven't finished the story mode side, as I only got to play for a certain amount of time, but I will be getting to play some today and hopefully get through. And I'm wondering if how far you get into the story mode actually allows and determines what maps you can play in quick play, because in quick play I've only been able to play 1 through 4 or 1-4. I'm not sure if that's like levels 1 through 4 or 1-4. I'm not sure how that goes, but I've only been able to play that one. I haven't gotten to the second one yet in the story mode, so maybe if you unlock more sections of the story, you actually get more access to different maps. So I'm hoping that that's a thing. Now, when you do play this mode, you are going to have to create a deck similar to the game mode of Deck Gear Up, and these decks will help you with abilities to help with the waves of enemies that you're going against. You'll have a whole bunch of different type of cards up here. You'll have spike traps, electric traps, slow towers, stun towers, stunning effects, turrets, all kind of gadgets and things that you can use in order to help yourself take out these different waves of enemies. Now, when it comes to these traps, you have to understand that some things are better than others, as you do have traps that sit on the ground, and as they walk through, they get caught in them. And then you also have turrets, which are these guns that are able to shoot. We also have cards that just increase certain things. Like there are cards that increase turret damage and range, as well as adding like a toxic or a freeze effect. So there's that too. But now the main difference, in my opinion, when it comes to something like the traps opposed to the turrets, if the traps that sit on the floor, the enemy team does not actually attack those, so you don't have to worry about them being destroyed by the waves of enemies as they're attacking you. These for anything that go on the floor that are just straight up traps. They don't do anything else. But now if you have something like a turret, or I think even like certain towers, the enemy will attack those to get them out the way. So you want to make sure that if you are using something like a turret, you're going to want to put those up on like the ceilings, if you're going to put them on the wall, put them up high, so that the enemy can't just walk up and destroy them. As if they're on the floor or down below, they are destroyable, and it's one of the few things that the enemy will actually actively go and attack to get rid of. But something like a spike pit, or the spikes that you put down on the floor, they don't attack those. They're forced to walk through them. and it's probably the better option. You at least want to put those down more often than not. Anything that goes onto the floor, you pretty much want to put that on there. But when it comes to your turret, you're going to want to put those up in high places so that the enemy isn't able to just easily walk up to them and destroy them. Because I'm telling you, if they do that, you're going to be frustrated. And when you run out of turrets, eventually there do get to be pretty big waves, and you are going to need these turrets. So you're going to want to make sure you're placing them in correct places so you get the most value out of them. Now, again, like I said, in my opinion, it seems that the floor traps seem to be better, as again, the enemies will destroy your turrets. And with these floor traps, you have traps that stun them, you have traps that create chain lightning that affect multiple people, and you have ones that slow. And these never go away. They're always along on the floor. Also, I did play a game with these one randoms that were able to put up these towers. And I don't know if it was because they put up so many towers in one area, but it seemed as though the enemy couldn't even get out of the spawn. Now, the one thing I will see is when it comes to playing this, so when I was playing, I played a couple of the solo games first, and I was a little confused because at first I was like, man, I thought that this was something you played with other people, and then I realized that it was the story mode. Maybe if you actually queue up, like if you're in a party, you might actually be able to queue up into that mode with somebody. I'm not sure, as none of my friends want to play this for some reason, even though I'm playing it. It's just I just play this by myself more often than not. But once you're in there and then you play online, once you're in the solo one, I feel the solo one might be a little bit harder, as it is completely up to you. So you do need to go ahead and make sure that when you're setting up your defenses, you are doing it pretty well and you are taking advantage of the time that you have. Just like when you play online with others, in between each wave of enemies, you will have a time limit. Within that time limit, that will allow you to reset your defenses and set anything up. In between that, once you're done, you are able to hit ready to speed up the time limit. But if for some odd reason you are taking too long, the time limit will count down and the wave will start whether you hit ready or not. So make sure that you are taking advantage of your time and not really wasting anything in that regard. Now, the one thing I will say is this. Again, when you play solo, it is a little bit more challenging. As you further along you go, the harder it gets. Now, when I played online, again, I have not gotten to the second areas yet, so maybe that's what the problem is. But when you play online with other people, with all the points that you and your teammates acquire, and then being able to use those points to buy things like turrets and traps, I feel like it's basically too easy. Like every time I played, the enemy never got anywhere near close to our core. It was not really a challenge, I would say. But again, this is me playing on the 1-4. I don't know if that's level 1 wave 4 or if it's level 1-4. Not really sure how that works. But again, every time I played, it had us on that same ruins map. I never got to play on a different map. I am going to try today, and hopefully when I get to the second part of the story, hopefully that unlocks a different map for me. But if it's only this one ruins map, again, I have not had issues as far as keeping the enemies away from the core. So I think that that's something they need to fix. Either they need to reduce the amount of points that each player gets, especially if you're playing with other people, and I think that's probably the smartest option. Just reduce the amount of points that players earn, the more players that are actually in the game, because the reduced points is made up by the other teammates having their points. And this requires all three players to now technically work together to make sure that the defense is strong enough in order to hold off the waves. So the one thing I would definitely change is the amount of points you get when playing with others. Also, on top of that, maybe make it to where some of the traps that are on the floor can be destroyed, at least more than the ones that are, because pretty much none of them that go on the floor get destroyed. And I think that this would also add a layer to things, making it to where, you can't just set up a certain amount of traps and that those traps kind of sit there the whole time, man. But outside of making certain traps more destroyable and the fact that I think you should reduce the amount of points that players get if they're playing with other users, I think those are the main gripes. But ultimately, I think this is going to be a fun casual mode that you can hop on with you and your friends and just shoot the shits with them. Now, I hope that they do improve on this and it gets better, but this is a very, very good starting point in my opinion, man. But let me know down in them comments how y'all feel about this game mode. Do y'all enjoy it? What positives do you see about it? What negatives do you see about it? And what would you change for the better? And what would you change for the worse, man? Let me know down in them comments. and let's get a conversation started, man. But until then, I'm gonna leave y'all off with the rest of this gameplay here in the background, and I hope y'all enjoy that, man. But as always, please like, comment, subscribe, follow, share, become a supporter, and catch me streaming on Facebook Gaming and Twitch at that boy ETV. Now, catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace.
Not that I care, but your turret's in trouble. You've hit that card's limit. Wait till next round.
Yeah, this is basically like zombies.